Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about two soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games that they come from, without getting too bogged down in music theory. Joe, what are this week's games?
Up first is 1997's Tomba, the story of a feral child who wants to get his bracelet back from the evil pig wizards who stole it, no matter how many bags he has to throw them into.
Following that is the angry post-apocalyptic soccer game that brought online multiplayer Mario sports action to the Nintendo Wii, 2007's Mario Strikers Charged. Yes, I know there are some who may have cringed when I said that game is a soccer game.
We're in America and we call it the wrong name here.
But it does bring up the point, actually, that these games are both called different things in Europe. For Mario Strikers Charged, it turns into Mario Strikers Charged Football, as you might expect, over in Europe. And then instead of Tomba, it's Tombi.
Pretty interesting theme, actually. I had no idea that Strikers had a different name in Europe, but I guess, yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, sure does. I mean, they are not big fans of us using the name soccer to explain that sport.
Look, we already use football for a sport that very much should not be called football.
It should be called hand egg instead.
Yes.
Joe, how are you doing? What are you playing?
All I have been playing are demos because the Steam Next Fest was last week and I still have at time of recording, I still have 19 demos installed on my computer. There are a couple that I've really, really enjoyed. First of all, if you like rhythm games, go look up Unbeatable White Album. It is technically a demo, but it's just sort of released as a quote unquote full game, but it's free. There's 9 songs. It is awesome. It might already be in my top 10 soundtracks of the year. And it's just a sneak peek at a game that isn't actually coming out until who knows? Because the Kickstarter was this year and that's what they released it for. I also played a game called Lake, where you play as a woman going to she goes to the old small lake town that she grew up in and has been absent from for 22 years. And she takes over for her dad for a little while as the temporary postman. So you just play as a postal worker delivering people's mail and talking to them and getting to know the people in this town. I'm very, very interested in how that is going to turn out. And Sable has gotten a lot of buzz. I've enjoyed that one as well. It's Breath of the Wild, but take out all the combat, and instead of horses, you have hover bikes, and it's more sci-fi-y. It's really, really fun, really neat. A lot of good demos in there. I wish I had gotten a chance to play them all.
Yeah, definitely go check your Twitter account @StringPixel for a more detailed breakdown on what you've played. Because you've been certainly very busy trying a whole bunch of different things, but good to know some of your favorites there.
Other than that, I'm at the last dungeon in Soul Hackers, so I'm almost done.
That's awesome that you've been making that progress. I'm really happy for you there. And you're going to beat that before next episode, I'm sure. Maybe you'll get back to Danganronpa. Who knows?
Hopefully, that is the hope.
Meanwhile, I've only been able to put in a little time towards games, so I started Ratchet and Clank Into the Spider-Verse. Rift Apart. So just a fun time. It's really a spectacle. I have not far in the game at all. In fact, just went through the tutorial on how to put raritanium into your weapons. Yeah, so maybe an hour, if you want to count that. So, lots more still to play. Just a great time. Insomniac's on the top of their game right now. It's just fantastic. Not too much composer follow-up news this week. Let's just mention, broadly, we're coming off, an hour or two after the end of the Sonic 30th Anniversary Symphony, which we had mentioned a couple weeks ago, where the symphony was going to play a couple hours of orchestrated Sonic music, and by all accounts, it was fantastic. So by the time you're listening to this, there should be a VOD available, so go check it out. Just a delightful time with great music orchestrated.
I hear they even went to the Game Gear.
Whoa!
They pulled deep.
Pretty crazy. But yeah, it just sounds like a spectacular show. That's pretty much it, though. Everyone kind of blew their load a little bit for E3. And so we don't have much news to cover. So let's start talking about some games.
All right, let's talk about Tomba. Now, Tomba was technically a listener suggestion, and by that I mean Matt heard DVD Smith, friend of ours, on his stream saying he was going to suggest it to us for OSC, and then Matt told me that, and I was like, that's basically the same as being suggested, so went on the schedule. Originally, I was going to do it for the Mass Effect 3 episode, because I think that would have been a fun juxtaposition, putting those two together, but I needed a little bit more time to sort of look into it and talk to TV Smith about it. So, Tomba was originally released for PlayStation in Japan on December 25th, 1997. It was a Christmas release. And then it came to North America on July 16th, 1998. And then in Europe, they got it on August 28th, 1998, where, as you mentioned, the title was changed to Tombi. As far as I can tell, they've never given like an official reason for why the title was changed. The most convincing theory I was able to find is that Tomba is the Italian word for grave. And that probably didn't really fit the aesthetic that they wanted this game to go with. So it was developed by Whoopee Camp and self-published in Japan, but it was published by Sony Computer Entertainment everywhere else. Tomba is a side-scrolling platformer mixed with RPG elements where you explore a semi-open world and you complete these events, which are essentially just like quests of varying length and significance, and some of them are like, oh, go get this thing for me, or go attack this thing, or go beat this score somewhere. There are 130 total events in the game, and these can vary from challenges, fetch quests, anything. And completing them will reward you with adventure points, which can then be used to unlock new areas or to open special chests. So it's basically, I mean, from what I can tell, spoiler alert, I've never played Tomba. From what I can tell, it's kind of a Metroidvania in some ways. But you're not really getting abilities that open up new areas. More you get abilities that are like, they make you a bit stronger, as far as I can tell. I don't know. There's only so much that watching gameplay can really do for you. You play as a young feral child named Tomba, who mainly fights by leaping at enemies and then tossing them into things to damage them. He basically tackles them, jumps on their back, he bites them, and then jumps in the air and spins and lets them go, and they fly in a straight line until they hit something. It's actually quite satisfying to watch, I'm not going to lie. But eventually you can acquire other methods of fighting as you go, like you can get a boomerang and stuff like that. For the plot of Tomba, the easiest place is just going to be to go with what Wikipedia says. Quote, Tomba's bracelet, an heirloom from his grandfather, is absconded following a confrontation with a group of evil coma pigs. He ventures to a nearby village in his pursuit, where he is directed to the 100-year-old wise man. The wise man relates to Tomba the story of how the 7 evil pigs, the leaders of the coma pigs, appeared and used their powers to tarnish the land. He explains that the coma pigs have been stockpiling gold, and surmises that Tomba will find his bracelet if he seeks out the 7 evil pigs hiding throughout the land. So Tomba must journey to capture the evil pigs in magical evil pig bags, which is exactly what they're called, that just sort of spawn around if he finds one, and then you just gotta throw them in there. That will free the world from their evil presence and, hopefully, help him get back his grandfather's bracelet. So, Peter, this is where I will ask, what are your experiences with Tomba?
I feel like I've seen, like concept art for it or key art for it. You have this shirtless kid with pink hair and like he's chasing after a pig. But that's literally all I know about Tomba. I feel like I had heard about Tombi in a similar conversation about the game, but yeah, I mean, that's all I knew. I can't say I've ever seen gameplay, that's for sure.
This will come up in a bit, but I actually only recently, like 2 years ago, became aware of Tomba's existence, And then earlier this year, actually, DVD Smith was streaming it. He streamed the whole thing, and I was able to catch a couple hours of his last stream, I think. It looks neat. I think I might try it at some point, but yeah, I have absolutely no knowledge of this series whatsoever. So, in fact, I think going into this might be the least knowledge I've kind of ever had of any of the games that I've brought that I haven't played. So this is going to be quite interesting. But there are also a lot of very neat things in the history of this game and how it came to be. Basically, before we talk about Tomba and how it was made, we have to talk about Tokuro Fujiwara, the founder of Whoopee Camp and the man who served as the game's director, producer, artist, and one of the programmers. So he had his finger in almost every pie that was part of the big pie of video games.
Can we also just throw it out there? Whoopee Camp, a fantastic developer name.
I agree. Very good. So Fujiwara actually began his career in games at Konami in 1982, but then a year later, he jumped ship and moved to Capcom. And while at Capcom, he oversaw the creation of several kind of famous arcade-centric franchises, most notably Ghosts and Goblins and Bionic Commando. And he was very happy in the arcade area, the arcade division at Capcom. But then they permanently transferred him to the console division in 1989 so he could helm development of a little Famicom game that you might have heard me talk about at some point called Sweet Home. After this, he would stay in the console division and would serve as a producer on games like Mega Man 3, DuckTales, Gargoyle's Quest, Breath of Fire, and Mega Man X, just to name a few. And then in 1994, he took the helm of a Super Famicom game horror project that had recently been scrapped and moved to the PlayStation, where he joined director Shinji Mikami in what was initially going to be a 3D remake of Sweet Home, but later turned into a little obscure PS1 game that you might have heard of called Resident Evil. And then shortly after the release of Resident Evil, he left Capcom because he sort of felt like working under Capcom did not give him nearly as much creative freedom as he wanted, which I could see that. They're one of the bigger publishers in Japan still. And especially given his history of, oh man, I like it in the arcade division. Well, too bad. You work in console games now. Like, I can't really say I blame him for kind of wanting to, all right, I got my big good one. I'm out.
Yeah, and for a publisher, I mean, what they say goes in the business, so.
Yeah. So, yeah, he leaves Capcom, and he founds Whoopee Camp and begins development on the project that would become Tomba. And honestly, it's kind of weird that, yeah, this game has 3D elements to it, but it's kind of just a 2D side-scroller. And in this period of time, if your game was not 3D, it didn't get funded.
But if you're going to self-publish, you can do what you want.
Yeah. For anybody that's too young to remember this, because those people are probably like 19, 18 years old now. When 3D games became a big thing back in the days of the PS1 and the Nintendo 64 and stuff like that, everybody decided, without being told, that 2D was dead and sprite-based games stopped happening. That's why there are a bunch of like really classic franchises that have god-awful attempts at 3D adaptations in that time period, because it was basically, if it's not 3D, you don't get money.
Joe, we're recording on the 25th anniversary of the Nintendo 64.
Oh, God.
It's ancient at this point.
Oh, no. Oh, that knowledge just dealt critical damage to my soul. But anyways, he wanted to make a 2D game, and they're self-publishing, and nobody could tell him he couldn't. So he explained his reasoning for this as, quote, "A two-dimensional presentation is fundamental to the experience of video games, and the format is a straightforward way to please and excite players." Basically, he thought, why are we trying to reinvent the wheel right now? 2D games, people like them. They still like them. We should still make them. He also wanted to put an emphasis on the player's decisions, more so than your usual action platformer game of the era, hence why the event system came together the way it is. It doesn't alter the story or anything, but one of the things that you can do is, through trying to complete one event, you might stumble on multiple other events, and then you're just on these tangents. And he wanted to make sure that it was still a lot of fun while you were doing that. Instead of like how some JRPGs can sometimes get, where it's like, all right, well, I have 30 side quests that I have to take care of, and it just becomes a menial task. Overall, though, Tomba was pretty well received upon release, a game ranking score of 84%. It was heavily praised for its non-linearity and the fact that it did encourage players to go off on those tangents away from the main story and still have them be a lot of fun. And some reviewers actually really liked the platforming segments, claiming they felt very similar to an evolution of Ghosts and Goblins, which was brought up specifically because Fujiwara was involved. Though some critics pointed out that this kind of made the gameplay feel a little bit derivative of games like that. So it was sort of a love it or hate it sort of thing, it seems like. But it was most heavily lauded for its unique and colorful visuals and smooth animation. They mentioned that at E3 1998, it stood out the most because at that year, a lot of the games being shown off were like apocalyptic, gritty shooters. And then you have this super colorful game about a kid with pink hair jumping on pigs and throwing them into bags. And, you know, that's different. Though a lot of comparisons were apparently heavily drawn to games like Klonoa Door to Phantomile, which is another game that I have never played. Unfortunately, though, this critical reception, it did not translate into sales numbers. The word lukewarm was used to describe how much it sold. And this sort of made Sony a little bit hesitant to throw some of their money towards a sequel, but they did eventually convince Sony to give them a chance on a sequel. It came out in October of 1999. It is titled Tomba 2, The Evil Swine Return, and it was also reviewed very well, but also sold worse than the first game did.
That's probably why we've never heard of Tomba since.
Probably. Even so, the game did manage to get a cult fandom years later, but sadly, it was too little, too late. Whoopee Camp disbanded shortly after Tomba 2's release. Tomba, though, would be released on PSN in July of 2011 with this weird three-way deal where I guess Fujiwara like straight up owns the rights to Tomba in its entirety. So they had to like go talk to him, and they sort of did it while agreeing that they would only do the sequel as well if the first one sold well enough, which it seems like it did, because then in September of 2011, the sequel was also re-released on PSN. Meanwhile, in 2005, Fujiwara went back to Capcom and then ended up taking a break from the industry for health reasons in 2009. For a long while, in fact, when I talked about Fujiwara last on my Sweet Home video on NWR, his last credit in the industry was for 2009's Mad World on the Wii. But apparently he was the director of Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, which came out in February of this year. So he's back, baby.
Mm-hmm.
So that's neat. I actually did not even think about whether or not that was him. And I'm glad to see that he's still getting work and doing okay. So the music in Tomba, one of the only things that Fujiwara did not have his finger into, it was done by Harumi Fujita. She was born on an unknown day in 1961 in Tondabayashi, Osaka, Japan. She was inspired to become a composer by her father's record collecting hobby, which led her to listening to a variety of music every day. And then after college in 1984, she applied to SNK to be a designer. But then the interviewers looked at her resume and saw that she was, experienced in music and said, "Hey, we don't have an in-house composer, actually. Do you want to come be our in-house composer?" And I guess she said yes, because she was at SNK for 1 year. And then she left SNK and joined Capcom in 1985, becoming a member of the company's in-house sound team, Alf Lyla, who I'm positive we've talked about before. Then at Capcom, she was often credited by an alias, which was, the insert Simpsons gif here, which was the style at the time, of which she had a few. She would be credited as Mrs. Harumi Fujita or Mrs. Harumi, Misses. Which that one's my favorite. That one is great. I love that. Now, we've actually talked about Miss Fujita before because her final game at Capcom was Mega Man 3. And you might remember the whole story behind Mega Man 3 is that the composer for that game, Yasuaki Fujita, he took over partway into development because the original composer, Harumi Fujita, had to go on maternity leave. And reminder, he is unrelated to her. People assume he is her husband all the time. I think I did when we did Mega Man 3 until I found that no, she is in fact not his wife. They just happen to have the same last name. But yeah, she did 3 tracks for Mega Man 3 and then had to go on maternity leave. And she left Capcom after this whole thing and went freelance, as most of the Japanese composers we cover tend to do. And she was active in the industry until around 1999, when she apparently wanted a break from the, quote, fixed patterns of game music. So she moved into working on stage productions and musicals, which is a hell of a place to change. In 2014, though, she joined Brave Wave Productions, which we have absolutely mentioned before, because she is a member of that label alongside names like Chip Zell, Yoko Shimomura, David Wise, Manami Matsumae, and many more. Those 4 are just the ones we've covered on this show. And of course, recently, she made a return to video game music in 2019 on, well, let's get to that, discography. She did sound effects on Ghosts of Goblins, and that was one of the first things she did while she was at Capcom. But then she proceeded to do music for Bionic Commando, Final Fight, Strider. She did sound programming on the Willow game for NES, which I believe people are fans of. I don't know. I've never seen the movie or played the game. She did music on Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, collaborated with Yoko Shimomura on Gargoyle's Quest, then of course Mega Man 3, and then most importantly of any of these, she did the music for Bishoujo Senshi Sailor Moon S Kondo wa Puzzle de Oshioki-o, a Sailor Moon game. I've never gotten to mention a Sailor Moon game on this show before. She did Tomba, of course, but she did not come back for the sequel. She did a Game Boy Color version of the game Magical Tetris Challenge. And then in 2019, she did the music for a game called Spider Soars, and was also one of the composers that contributed to the soundtrack of Streets of Rage 4. So in terms of historical development research for this, I want to again give special thanks to DVD Smith, who helped me figure out this Critical 5. I was like, what are the songs you like the best? And he sent me like 8 choices, and most of those choices ended up on here. One of the Critical 5 is mine. That's just from me listening. But yeah, without him, this probably would have been a bigger disaster than it's already going to be. So I do want to mention, though, that Tomba features 2 licensed tracks that are not on the Critical 5 for obvious reasons. The opening being a song called Paradise by the band Tokyo Channel Q, and the ending theme being Kei Sara Sara by Fumitaka Fujigami. Except, DVD Smith was very adamant that I need to mention this, and I think he's right. In the European version, they have a different opening track. It is the song No Sweat 98 by the band North and South, which served as the opening to their popular children's BBC television show that had recently released as a single. I cannot find any information on why this change was made, but there it is. The show was called No Sweat. I don't know anything about it because I was raised in America, and they just took that song and it became the opening track to Tomba. I have no idea. It's weird. It's absolutely bizarre. But let's get into those 5 critical tracks. I know you're dying to hear what this game sounds like. Normally when we go to PS1 games, it gets kind of rough because the MIDIs in PS1 era ain't great. But honestly, I think this game does a really good job with the MIDIs it has. And I think the first great example of that is critical track number 1, title theme. So if you're like me and saw the character of Tomba and just assumed he was a caveman, because I assumed he was a caveman, then this song makes perfect sense because these are some caveman vibes, baby. Mm-hmm. That vibraphone is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. I really, really like that. It's a very, very short loop, but I really, really like this sort of song just for the, yeah, this is the vibe. This is the tone we're going for, baby.
Yeah, it sets it up well, and you're right, a short loop, but also fascinating in its simplicity. Like, it's 2 tracks. It's a drum track, and it's a vibraphone track, and that's it.
Yeah, and it does really well with that like very limited instrument set. Surprisingly so.
I mean, but it's like to the point that you think it wouldn't even be on a PlayStation, as far as like just how simple it is, but I mean, yeah, we're right in those caveman vibes right away.
Like, yeah, it feels like a song from a game that was made on a platform that had way more limitations. I think I get what you're saying there.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So for critical check number 2, though, there's a bit more instrumentation here. It's Village of All Beginnings. I like this song a lot. You're going to hear me say the words happy vibes a lot on this soundtrack because it's all happy vibes. And I really love the steel drums in this song because, you know, it's not like a unique sound we've never heard, but it always has this personality whenever it shows up. And also, this song is just incredibly catchy in general. I really dig it.
Yeah, the steel drums are the standout here for sure because at the beginning of the clip, at least, you're like, okay, it's another pretty simplistic piece. And then you get the little ha sound effect in there, and it's like, okay, a little bit of vocalization, but then, all the good vibes coming in with those steel drums. Yeah, it feels a little tropical in a way as a result.
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't have time to go look at what the Village of All Beginnings looks like, but this gives me the feeling that it is like some sort of beach adjacent town?
Right, yeah.
I'm probably wrong on that. Same with, for critical check number 3, being Dwarf Village. Now, this is the one that I got that stood out to me the most when I was listening through the soundtrack. So this was not one of DVD Smith's suggestions. Again, it's just this really, really happy vibe. I think in this one, it's the acoustic guitar and the maracas. The maracas especially just give it this yeah. I don't know. It's a nice moving track, and it's just kind of delightful to listen to.
It sure is. I mean, and we compare it to Spyro the Dragon, another PlayStation game that we covered recently. I think with this game in particular, though, with Tomba, like, it's picking instruments that don't suffer from poor MIDIs on the platform, right? So, like, it sounds really good for the time, and I think that's just, like, a careful selection of what is the theme we're trying to go with for the game, but also what's the best that we can select, for the options that we have at our disposal. And it works. Like, it's creating a really similar theme. I don't know necessarily what makes the dwarf village, stand apart, but you still get the steel drums here, but it's more like driving a more traditional, typical melody in a video game track instead of like the like kind of the faster, happier rhythm it's playing at. But I see how you would have picked this one for sure.
I just like the maraca. Or I guess it's not technically a maraca. It's like one of those eggs with like
the little beads on it. And
yeah.
Yeah.
They really get your foot tapping along to it. It's really good. Then we have one more village for you. We're going to take a trip to critical track number 4. It is Bacchus Village. I keep accidentally typing this as Bacchus because Bacchus, but it's not. It's Bacchus. There's no H. When I listen to this song, I can't help but feel like it sounds like they pulled it out of a Final Fantasy game from that era. The violins are surprisingly all right for a PlayStation 1. Granted, I think PlayStation 1 did violin fine because, like, listen to Final Fantasy 7. It's got a lot of violin to it. It did fiddle very well. But, I don't know. Whenever I hear this song, it's like, oh, you guys are one melody away from just being the Chocobo farm that I've wandered onto. And I don't know. I really like that sort of farm vibe. And I'm a sucker for violins.
What is it about farm vibes at that time? Because you get this also in 97 as well, like you would for Final Fantasy 7. But, 1998, Lon Lon Ranch, Ocarina of Time, like, kind of has the same sort of farm aesthetic. And I feel like it's got to be fiddle down here on the farm. So it's really interesting that they channel that same sort of feeling and atmosphere.
That actually might just be a direct result of, the technology we have now can do pretty all right, like, violin sounds. What if we just used that?
But is it also just like, this is what Japanese people think farms are? And does that correspond to what they are in the West? And is it Western films? I don't know.
Oh, 100%. I guarantee you that is the starting point that they all went on. Following that, we have one more track, and it's not a village, and it's a little bit more, not happy vibes, but it's a very fun piece. It is critical track number 5, Evil Pig Boss. I'm trying to think of the exact game this reminds me of, but when I hear this, it kind of reminds me of, like, when you're in an RPG that has a more sort of cartoonish, anime-ish aesthetic to it, and you get to the villain that's like the bumbling idiot, and they're not really the actual villain of the story. They're just there, and they're dumb, and you kick the crap out of them. That's what this feels like. This feels like a battle theme if you were going after, like, Team Rocket or the Duranjo Gang. But, like, also, this song is a lot of fun. It really sort of... It's got that tension to it, but also it's not trying to pretend you're not fighting an evil pig and trying to throw him into a bag. Like, it knows that the concept is stupid and it's leaning into it.
Yeah, at least there's some levity and some amount of self-reflection there. Great title of Evil Pig Boss. Again, probably not at a time where there are soundtrack releases and these are official titles, but, more like people pairing what they are, but even still. And yeah, I feel like it's these orchestra hits. It's these little vocalization sound effects. It just gives, a goofiness to it all. What's supposed to be, I guess, a tense boss battle, but it's not that serious.
Yeah. Which, fits this game completely, because as far as I could tell, this game is very fine not taking itself that seriously. And, it's very respectable when they do that. All right. We got 2 tracks on the cutting room floor. And the first one, I need to pass a curse on to you that was passed to me by DVD Smith. It is Village of Civilization. Anyways, DVD Smith sent me this song and said, I like this one because it's, quote, definitely not bingo. And it is bingo. Like, unapologetically, like, changing a few notes here and there, but there was a farmer, had a dog, and bingo was his name-o. B-I-N-G-O. B-I-N-G-O.
Okay, like, I get the first bit of that, but I feel... like the was a farmer had a dog, like, yes. And then it just tries to do its own thing.
Yeah. But like during that farmer has a dog part, that it's spot on. Like, wow.
Yeah, definitely borrowed that lick of it for sure. I don't know if I'll keep that curse, to be honest. I don't know if I buy too much into that, but okay, I can hear the beginning of that for sure, yeah.
I just can't not hear it anymore. And then for my second track on the cutting room floor, it is Dirt Motocross. Yeah, that's right. You heard me right. This game has a motocross minigame in it that's basically Excite Bike. I was able to get into DVD Smith's stream for when he was doing this part, and it's one of those moments where you're like, I don't know what kind of game I thought Tomba was, but this is not it. But it looks fun, and the song is just, a lot of fun. But it's mainly here because I want to remind you that there's a motocross game in this game.
The energy of the song is sick. It's fun, but then you definitely see. Here's the thing: like once they start trying these like newer instruments, like you start hearing more of the limitations of the PS1, right? With its midis and whatnot. Although the water droplet sound effect sure is a choice.
It sure is. So what will I never forget about Tomba? I've never played it. I might give it a shot at some point. It looks like a game that I'd probably enjoy. But it just, I didn't have a PS1 growing up, so there's a ton of PS1 games I just never touched. And Tomba just happens to be one of them, though I'm not entirely sure. Even if I had a PS1 growing up, I don't know if Tomba would have entered my radar even then. So who knows? On an alternate timeline, we have an answer to that question.
There was a farmer, had a dog, and bingo was his name.
Tomba. So, for a transition, we like to highlight a fan cover remix, whether it be from YouTube, Overclocked Remix, Dwelling at Duels. There's a billion places it could come from, but usually YouTube, which is where mine came from this week, because I found just a delightful to watch cover of Village of All Beginnings by a YouTuber named Myriba, Mairiba, which he describes as an organ/ukulele cover. It's just fun to watch, especially the fact that he uses his mouth for one of the instruments, one of the percussion instruments, and I think that's just super charming. And I don't know, this is a great version of this song, so please enjoy that. We will be right back.
I can't believe that we have not covered a Mario sports spin-off on this show yet. Amazing, right? I mean, I guess that really depends on if you count Mario Kart as a sports spin-off. I don't. I think Mario Kart is kind of its own beast.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But let's talk about Mario Strikers Charged, which is the sequel to a previous soccer/football game that is all Mario themed, and that was Super Mario Strikers, which had a 2005 release on Nintendo GameCube. So, Mario Strikers Charged Football was released in Europe first on May 25th, 2007 for Nintendo Wii. Australia got the game a couple weeks later on June 7th, and then Mario Strikers Charged launched on July 30th, 2007 in North America. Japan would have to wait a little bit longer for September 20th, 2007. So this game was only released on Wii, and quite near the beginning of Wii's life cycle. Of course, you can play it on Wii U if you still have a Wii U, but that's it. There isn't any other Switch release at this point or anything like that, so you gotta kind of dig out your Wii or Wii U again if you ever want to play Mario Strikers Charged, at least at present day. The game was developed by Next Level Games and published by Nintendo. So yes, Mario Strikers Charged is a soccer or football game. It has the camera viewing a side profile of the pitch with the two goals on left and right opposite sides, and it kind of scrolls along that X horizontal axis to kind of best frame where the ball is. Each team in Mario Strikers Charged has a captain, which is usually a main character from the Mario series. You have 3 sidekicks and a keeper, who is played by Critter from the Donkey Kong Country series. So it's 5v5, but, really it's 4v4, but just with the keepers included as well. So the ball in Mario Strikers Charged is metallic, and it can be charged with energy to basically move faster upon kicks. When this ball is white hot, it is the fastest it will go upon being kicked. So you can charge this ball by passing or winding up on shots or passes. And if you dribble or carry the ball, so to speak, you're not really gaining much energy. So it's just encouraging moving the ball along, give it energy, and you'll have a better chance of scoring if you shoot upon the net. And so when you do shoot on the net, you can, of course, charge up your shots with the big wind-up. And the captains can fully charge up their shots, charged as long as possible, and then a little meter appears. And this would be for the game's big kind of unique gimmick of the megastrike. And with megastrikes, you can earn up to 6 goals, which is just wild in a soccer game, to be honest. Now, if you're defending an opponent's megastrike, this is where you get control of the keeper. It's the only time that this happens. And so you have to goaltend these soccer balls that are flying at you in a brief mini game and save as many as possible. Now, the sidekicks, when they fully charge up shots, they unleash a skill shot, which is often a shot that can usually paralyze or pass through the keeper. If you're in possession of the ball, you can execute a dodge or a defensive move, but when you don't have the ball, you can tackle anyone at any time. It can be chaotic, but you definitely want to use this to your advantage when you want to interrupt players that are winding up shots, and as a result, you gain possession of the ball. But tackling these opponents, especially when it's totally off the ball and honestly unwarranted, you aren't penalized like you would be in a soccer or football game, except it results in items being rewarded on the fly to the other team. So these can be varieties of shells, bananas, bombs, etc., or a temporary special ability for the captain. So Mario grows to be gigantic, Bowser gains fire breath, that's on a limited meter, Yoshi can roll around as a big egg, things like that. And probably the biggest and best thing about the game, especially early in the Wii's life cycle, is that it includes multiplayer support for up to 4 characters. Like many sports games in general, no story. I think just the biggest question is, can you lead your team to victory in the Strikers Cup? Because you get to customize your team, you get to pick your captain, you get to pick any 3 variety of sidekicks that you want, even if it's, let's say, 2 Toads and then 1 Boo. Like, you could do combinations like that. So yeah, pick your best team that you like with balance and whatever, and try to win the cup. So Joe, here's where I'll ask you, what are our experiences with Mario Strikers Charged?
Honestly, not a lot. I have seen it played a little bit, but it's not one of the games that we had when I had a Wii. I don't know why not, because I saw a good amount about this game, like during the lead up to, I want a Wii, I want a Wii, I want a Wii, which, saying that out loud 3 times, why did you name it that?
Doesn't age too well. Yeah.
It doesn't age great. I kind of wish they'd make another one, because I'd probably be all over it. But other than that, I don't have a huge amount of experience with Charge specifically.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a game that if you got a Wii later, or you like had to wait a year or 2, maybe it's not one of the games that you go for right away, right? Because you got your Wii, am I mistaken, like kind of around Galaxy-ish?
Yeah, around Galaxy, because it came with Galaxy.
Okay, and then that makes sense because Brawl was shortly thereafter. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I feel like if you're spending money on games, like you're kind of focusing on those. But if you got a Wii at or near launch, like I did, this was one of the next big games. And so I got this game. I enjoyed playing this game a lot. I unfortunately traded this game in when I was dumb and in college and thought that was a good way of managing your game collection.
Oh, we all had that period.
No, it's a bad idea. Don't do it. I feel like I need to get Mario Strikers Charged at some point again, because it's such a fun game. So fun, especially in the age of, Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, playing Nintendo games online, specifically in a home console setting with Nintendo Wii. Yeah, there are some Nintendo DS games that you could do that with, but for a home console, friend codes and all, certainly, but, a way to play these Nintendo games online with your friends. I feel like that was, one of the early sort of big games, especially for the North American market. And so, yeah, that's my big experience with it. I, enjoyed playing it a lot, though I couldn't kind of reach the upper echelons of difficulty, which we'll get to. But it's really the online that I remember most of all. So these captains that you can play as for your teams, there are some that are available from the start, which include Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Yoshi, Wario, Waluigi, Donkey Kong, and Bowser. But there were 3 more characters that were unlockable, being Bowser Jr., Diddy Kong, and Petey Piranha. And they were rewards for beating them at the end of, in the finals of these 3 cup tournaments, which were all based on difficulty. So Bowser Jr. on the easiest, Diddy Kong in the middle, and then Petey Piranha was the reward for beating the hardest, the Striker Cup. The sidekicks are Toad, Hammer Bro, Koopa Troopa, Birdo, Boo, Drybones, Monty Mole, and Shy Guy. So yeah, there's skill shots when they charge up. Drybones, when you charge his shot up, it's like an electric ball that will paralyze the keeper, and then it'll bounce back to you. So you like pass it to a teammate and shoot into a wide open net usually. Birdo is like a big egg that can possibly pass through the goalie. Boo, you just kind of take the ball yourself and pass through the goalie a little bit. Gosh, there were even some little glitches, techniques, whatever you want to call it. Exploits, I don't know. I mean, strategies for like a Boo for this defensive maneuver. You kind of temporarily turn invisible as like a little deke. Well, if you charge towards the keeper while dribbling the ball and you do that, sometimes you could pass through the keeper and just carry the ball into the net. In a time of, games weren't being patched on Wii, these were certain techniques that players like to use a lot.
Can I just say that it dates when this game came out, Birdo's position on the roster? Because if this had been even like one generation behind, Birdo would absolutely be a captain. But
for sure.
Birdo hasn't been in a Mario game at this point in like a decade. And in fact, technically never was. And so it's very interesting to me that she's in the sidekick camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, she sure was. She was a good one to use too. I remember using Birdo quite a lot. I used Birdo, Boo, and Drybones primarily. Although Hammer Bro is also annoying too. You charge his up and he throws hammers before he shoots the ball, so that could like bury the keeper if you're close enough. It's certain strategies that you could use. Now, of course, all these different pitches, these fields, these stages that you could have these matches on. There are 4 that are initially available from the start and 6 that are unlockable. So each of these 10 new arenas offer different unique pitch hazards. One, you could be flying in a storm and then like suddenly a lightning bolt could come down. But that it's most basic. You have these electrified fences that you could tackle and knock opposing players into, and they'd be jolted for a little bit, allowing you to steal the ball easily, have it be right there. There were more options, though, for stages, and that would be the 7 classic pitches from Super Mario Strikers. So they bring back all of the fields from the original Super Mario Strikers game, and those are all also available from the start if you wanted to have a quick play match. So I didn't find too much development information per se. The wikis, the articles on this game, just very sparse. Not surprising. Granted, in a time of beginning on the Wii, we didn't have Nintendo talking too much about their games at this point, so that's honestly not too surprising. But Mario Strikers Charged was announced in August 2006 at the Leipzig Games Convention in Germany. Oh, remember when that event was a thing, especially in the Brawl days. And so it was announced then as the sequel to Super Mario Strikers. As I mentioned, the game supported the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, which allowed players to participate in online matches and tournaments. And upon its European release, it became the first Wii online game to be available outside Japan. Because it released so early, it was the first Wi-Fi connection game in Europe. Now, in North America, that first game was Pokemon Battle Revolution. That was the first Wii game to support Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. And it released about a month before Mario Strikers Charged. So still, Mario Strikers Charged is still notable as one of the first of these Wi-Fi enabled games that you can play online matches with your friends on a Nintendo home console. Granted, is it behind the time a little bit with, Xbox Live and things like that? Yes. But in their own slow, semi-backwards way, with friend codes and no voice chat and things like that, Nintendo was getting on that sort of roll in the mid to late 2000s.
How little things change.
Yeah, when some things change, some things still stay the same. So the other weird thing about this game is because Next Level Games developed it, and it wasn't like Nintendo EAD. Nintendo did allow a bit more license with how the characters would act, some of their animations, things like that. But this is like a post-apocalyptic setting for many of these pitches. whether it's like stormy or things are dilapidated or you just have this kind of futuristic looking setting. It's very strange for a Mario spin-off title, much less a sports one. And also, like, give everyone angry eyebrows. Because, like, there is just, like, this angry, mean energy to many of the characters in this game, especially the captains. Just imagine, like, Mario doesn't often have, like, I guess, okay, if he's scoring, right? If he does things, he's very happy. But otherwise, it's a lot of angry brows. And it's just like, okay, it's a different Mario character energy. I was watching a Let's Play, or just a long play of, like, people playing matches and all that, because at the gist of it, these are 3-minute long matches. Like, these matches can go very quickly, and it's just playing a lot of matches in this game. So, like, I'm seeing some of the different animations, and there's one where it's like after a goal, for the other team, Luigi was the captain, and, like, he turns around and he just looks angry, like gritted teeth, angry Luigi. And it's like, what is this energy that is being given off from these Mario characters? It's different.
They took the American Kirby box art and they made it into a video game.
I'm pretty much, honestly. Yeah.
Like it just reminds me of, like, maybe we just don't know Luigi as well as we think we do. Cause he's also got the, like, evil side eye in Mario Kart 8 that he became
right.
real famous for a little bit. Maybe Luigi's just a lot meaner than we're giving him credit for.
I guess so. I mean, but then, like, while Luigi has a whip, it's weird stuff going on with this game.
I guess that's somebody's thing.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So the game reviewed fairly well, with a Metacritic average of 79 and also a 79% on game rankings. The game's visual style, the multiplayer, and the addition of online play were points of praise, but these single-player offerings were criticized as just, there's not enough. You have tournaments, you can play matches with other players, and that's about it. So, like, the gameplay is fun, but it's overall just a very shallow experience. As of March 31st, 2008, 1.77 million copies of the game had been sold worldwide, with 240,000 of those being in Japan. I'm sure there were some since then, since 2008, but when you're not re-releasing the game to a wider audience or anything like that, it's not going to be more than that for sure. Like, it probably did not break 2 million, honestly. And as a result, with it not reviewing as well, I couldn't find any awards. I mean, no BAFTAs, no Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences awards, nothing like that. As far as the legacy for Mario Strikers Charged, I would love to see a sequel or even a remake of the game, a remaster for Switch. That'd be nice.
I mean, Nintendo straight up owns Next Level Games now, so...
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they could certainly do that. But this is the most recent Mario soccer or football focused game. There may be some modes like in the Olympic Games, right? But it's not the focus of the game. In fact, the current Mario sports title of focus is Mario Golf Super Rush, which just released this past Friday, June 25th for Nintendo Switch.
We haven't played it yet at time of recording because it comes out in 2 days. I'm bizarrely excited for Mario Golf.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm going to get to buy it, but it should be a rental at least. So it was interesting looking up the composer for Mario Strikers Charged. And how to put this. There isn't a soundtrack release for the game. There's some information on the composers that worked on the game because they were employees of Next Level Games. But when we generally plan out these episodes, we look at, well, who's credited first, at least, right? Generally, when you get the first name credit, that means you did the most for the game. And when it comes to Mario Strikers Charged, Mike Peacock. Okay, well, when we get to the research, we'll find out what we can about Mike Peacock. And all I got to find out about Mike Peacock was that he works at Next Level Games, and that's it. It's one thing to look up Mike Peacock, Michael Peacock, Mike Peacock composer, Michael Peacock composer. Start doing your research, and all you can find is like a couple wiki entries on Nintendo wikis and things like that. A Metroid wiki, right? Or an IMDb, but that's it. Like nothing on Twitter, nothing on any sort of presence anywhere. And it's on top of it being Michael Peacock, Mike Peacock. He's not the only person with that name. So I honestly, try as I might, could not find anything on Mike Peacock. And the same thing with these other employees. Okay, maybe someone has a Twitter account for one of these other composers. You're still not gleaning much. You're not getting like a VGMDB profile telling you their birthday and other things they worked on. So honestly, all I could find on was the other games that Mike Peacock worked on as an employee at Next Level Games. Started with Mario Strikers Charged, then Next Level Games went and they worked on Punch-Out!, the 2009 remake or reimagining for Wii. And so he arranged some of the classic Punch-Out! Tunes there and also came up with some new music. Then they worked on Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Metroid Prime Federation Force with the Blast Ball in there. And then most recently, Next Level Games worked on Luigi's Mansion 3. So it seems like as a result of that, he's still at Next Level Games, but man, I wish he had any semblance of presence on the internet.
Unfortunate. Man, it happens.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, you find out too late, unfortunately, when you're doing the research, that week or the leading up to this recording, and it's just like, nope, unfortunately. So the composers on Mario Strikers Charged, again, loosely credited as, the composers at Next Level Games being Mike Peacock, Darren Radke, and Chad York. For what it's worth, you can find Chad York on Twitter at YorkChad. Like, that was about the best I could find. But then you have additional music from Scott McFadden and Davor Vulama. So because these matches are 3 minutes long, these stage themes are generally composed in 3-minute loops. And it's really interesting to listen to some of them and kind of envision like how is it played out throughout the match. Oh, at near the end of the 3 minutes, it gets more intense. You don't say. And I think it's just an interesting parallel on they plan the music out, especially when it's playing during the matches. They plan for it to be 3 minutes. And yeah, does it get interrupted by goals picking up? Okay, well, you pick up the track based on how much time is left in the game. It's really, really smart. But overall, it's a soundtrack that is so many different styles, and it's really a delight because of that. So let's get into the 5 critical tracks for Mario Strikers Charged. I think we have to start with this theme. Number 1 here on the Critical 5, this is Road to the Strikers Cup. This is the song that plays in the single-player tournament mode, the Road to the Strikers Cup mode. And man, it's a really iconic piece to this game, I think. So it's this driving beat, some of the guitar, the rhythm guitar, and the kind of trombone, the lower brass that's kind of playing in there. You throw in some boom, boom, boom with the timpani coming in there, and then the trumpets that come in with that melody. Yes, it is so good. And it's an easy 30-second loop. It repeats consistently when you're just going through the melodies, picking out your next match, who you're going to play. Because when it comes to this tournament mode, you have to play 10 matches. It's a round robin against different captains, and that kind of sets up how many points you get and kind of sets up your positioning for if you get to move on to the final winner-take-all matches with the semis and the finals and all that. So when you're setting up those next matches, you're going to hear this theme a lot. It's kind of a very emblematic piece for this game overall.
I agree that the trumpets are the standout instrument in this. I feel like this is Mario Sports to me.
Yeah.
Like, this song sounds like Mario Sports, and I can't, like, explain what that means in my head, but hearing this song is just immediately, oh yeah, no, this is a sports game. I can tell immediately.
Yeah, it's got that victorious kind of triumphant melody, and it's positive enough to be kind of associated with Mario and the Mushroom Kingdom. But you got some of those like grungy instruments that kind of sets up the darker post-apocalyptic theming of some of these matches. It's really cool. And it was interesting to note the YouTube comments as well for some of the different versions of the track that I could find. One in particular noted, Cup 1, easy. Cup 2, hard. Cup 3, just how. And I think, yeah, that kind of sets up my experience with the game. I was able to beat that Crystal Cup, the kind of middle level there against where Diddy Kong was like the final boss, and you beat him and you unlock him. I was only just barely able to get that one. And then the Strikers Cup with PD Piranha at the end, no chance. Too difficult. And I feel like that resonated well with me. I'm like, yep, that was as high as my skill level went, for sure. Let's get to number 2 on the Critical 5, though. Let's get to one of those stage themes. This is The Vice. The title would make sense then when this song plays on matches that take place on the Vice. It is the basic starter field, so to speak. It's like the simplest grass field. It's kind of like the default, if you will, for like a good pitch with like big crowds and all that. If you've seen footage of the game, you've probably seen it on the Vice. It's one of those 4 basic starter levels. And the only pitch hazard is that electric fence. So you're not dealing with too many other crazy things. Again, it's simple, it's bare bones. And when you're playing on this stage a lot, as a result, it's probably the most memorable theme from this game. It kind of starts out with this like simple bongo, synth, and bass groove. And then as it gets further and further into the piece, you start to add a bit more of a traditional drum set and like this simple electric guitar backing melody. But it's when the trumpets join, and again, good trumpet recordings, then it gets serious. In the clip here, we have like this little bit of a dropout with, you know, kind of more rhythm percussion, and then it comes back in like this high intense energy. I love that, bringing it back in. Like that little bit is like that's Mario Strikers gameplay to me. Like that's what I remember the most, for sure. And then of course with that 3-minute loop being, you know, the length of a match, you're hearing that music get more intense as the match, you know, starts to come to a close. So I think it's just the piece to stand out and highlight as far as like players remembering and having nostalgia for this game. It's the Vice for sure.
First of all, the Vice does not sound like a starting field at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is too like cool a name for the starting field.
With the big crowds, it almost makes me wonder, is there gambling involved going in this post-apocalyptic world? I don't know.
But also, when I hear the song, I wonder if this game somehow had any influence on Mario Kart 8 when that soundtrack was getting written. Because I can hear a lot of the same sort of vibes that would later end up in the orchestrated soundtrack of Mario Kart 8, if that makes sense. The jazzier stuff.
That's really interesting. I can hear that too, but I just wonder, with it being, 7 years apart from 2014's Mario Kart 8, that may be too long of a time, but you do get that same kind of infectious energy, yeah.
I mean, was there any other... I guess there was a Mario Tennis game on Wii. Well, no, wasn't that just a remake of Mario Tennis GameCube?
Yeah, Power Tennis on GameCube. Yep, the new Wii Play controller or whatever, yeah.
Huh. I don't remember what the next sports game between this and Mario Tennis Aces was. I don't think there was one, now that I think about it, unless you count the Olympics games.
So there was Mario Sports Mix on Wii, where they kind of just had like was dodgeball, volleyball, and a couple others. That may have been it though, like on Wii, unless if you count the Olympics games, right?
Yeah, like those are the closest, I want to say.
Oh, Super Mario Sluggers.
Oh,
Mario Super Sluggers, yeah.
That game exists and has King K. Rool in it for some reason. I played that one. I did play that one. So I should have remembered that. But I don't know. It just feels like I can hear parts of what would become Mario Kart 8 out of this song specifically.
Oh, absolutely. Let's play another stage theme, though. This one, number 3 on the Critical 5. This is The Classroom. Wouldn't you guess? This plays during matches on The Classroom, which is your training stage, so to speak. It has a similar kind of energy as fighting game training rooms, if you will. A lot of grays, a lot of glow blue greens, if you will. Just a really clean, sterile environment. And so Mario Strikers has a kind of tutorial mode where you can kind of learn how to play soccer/football, or at least this weird Mario variety of it. And so these tutorial stages take place also on The Classroom. And so while the Vice may be the most memorable theme, the most memorable stage, I'd say this is the best stage theme. I think if anything, the simplicity of the stage helps you pay more attention to the music. Some people may not like the disco vibes. They think it could be cheesy, but I think it fits really well when especially you're hearing all the sound effects of all the action and the chaos that's going around. You get this bass line that's thumping, these electric piano chords that really just provide a good support, and then these little electric guitar accents. And then when the drums kick in, moi, chef's kiss. I think it's just a fantastic sounding song. It's one of my favorites.
At the risk of sounding like a teenager who has only played one video game, of which the internet is full of right now, I feel like this would fit kind of well in an area of a Persona game. Persona 5 probably most likely, if not Persona 4. Probably not Persona 3. But like, I don't know, that's the vibe I get. It is really groovy. Like, damn. It's also very simple, which makes sense when you are saying like this is where the tutorial sort of happens, and it's like a very sterile stage, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this is a good song.
Now I really want to hear Lenny Naizumi sing over this song with this kind of acid jazz disco. Oh man, I need to make that happen for myself.
We need to become friends with Lin Inaizumi immediately. If somebody could please tell her we exist, she'll forget immediately, but like, do me a solid here.
Let's get to number 4 on the Critical 5. But before we do, especially if you're listening to this podcast in a car, I have to warn you that there are sirens in this song. I'm just doing you a solid. The sirens are on our end. Maybe there may be extra on yours. Keep your eyes on the road. But just wanted to warn you. Sirens in the upcoming song. Okay, number 4 on the Critical 5 here for Mario Strikers Charged. This is Sudden Death.
I'm glad they thought to put the official instrument of Kansas into their song.
Oh, really? I would have thought that would be Michigan's too.
I guess that's technically more tornado sirens, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's certainly a choice to include sirens in the piece, right? You don't have that too often, but I feel like it works really well with the kind of tension that's here in the piece. So this is when, after you hit those 3 minutes and the score is tied, suddenly this piece kicks in. And you're in extra time, where the next goal wins. And it's a really hype and intense piece. You get that gritty electric guitar rhythm going, and it doesn't take too many chances. It doesn't go too many places in this 30-second loop, but this song just screams this game to me. And also because it is it's a variation on the game's main theme that plays in the opening cinematic. So this like this kind of groove is like very iconic and really representative of this game's grittier tone, if you will, this kind of angrier tone. And yeah, the sirens are a weird choice, but it complements it.
This is tense as hell and feels like, overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Those sirens really, I think, fit, even though, yeah, if you're listening in a car, sorry, you're not getting pulled over, we promise.
It's all right. Just wanted to warn you ahead of time. Let's wrap things up on the Critical 5 with number 5 here from Mario Strikers Charged. This is Results. So this is another song that you're going to hear a lot, especially if you're playing a lot of single player and going through match after match in the tournaments and whatnot. The results play when the game is showing you the post-match summary for each match. And so, yeah, you're going to hear this kind of synthy, punchy song with just a lot of good beats there. I think there's a lot of neat work being done with like the high-pitched modulated tones that are in the second half of the clip there, especially when you have like the instrument drop out there. But yeah, this kind of synthy energy is going to be heard a lot, and it's really catchy, especially when you kind of like hang on the screen a little bit, kind of check out the stat comparison between the two teams. Just a piece that I think wraps up the overall big tracks of the game rather well.
When I hear this song, the first thing that comes to mind is either this is the shop theme in a like Jet Set Radio style game, or this is like the main menu theme of a rhythm game. Which that second one I think fits better with the fact that it's the results screen. Basically what I'm saying is, boy, this goes pretty hard for just a results screen.
Yeah, the soundtrack is all over the place, right? I mean, I didn't even mention on the cutting room floor, but when we've talked about games where when you pause the game, music that plays, it plays like the most quintessential elevator music that you've ever heard before. Like, it does that on the pause screen. Like, this soundtrack goes places. It goes harder in places that you wouldn't expect. And especially one of those places with going harder in different varieties. Let's mention it here with tracks on the cutting room floor. The first one involves character themes, and we have to highlight the best character theme. That is Luigi's theme. So yes, each character has their own theme music, generally plays if they are dropping out of the sky to start the match. That's always an interesting cutscene. Or if they score, or just, good things are kind of happening, their theme plays. And flamenco music for Luigi is a choice. But there are also these other strange pairings. Like there's bluegrass for Waluigi, polka for Wario, kind of a harder metal rock for Bowser, a surf rock for Bowser Jr., like a Hindustan theme for Diddy Kong. Like he's he's this gold, like he shines, and like he's this golden monkey deity, and this sitar music is playing. Like this soundtrack goes places for its characters, and yet Luigi's theme is the most immediately energetic theme. It's so recognizable, and it had to be here. It was really pushing to be a critical 5, but it's here on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I think I personally would have put this on the critical 5. It's awesome. Please tell me more about Waluigi Bluegrass after recording. You can tell me after recording.
No, I mean, honestly, it's like down, 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 and he's doing like the jabroni, like suck it animation. Like this game goes places, man.
Oh, that's amazing.
If you love banjo, you got to play Waluigi, who whips the ball on his megastrikes to the goalie. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the other one on the cutting room floor. For me, this is Crystal Canyon. So Crystal Canyon represents my limits on the game because this is essentially Diddy Kong's stage, and it's the home of the Crystal Cup Finals, the final match that takes place in the second of the 3 difficult cup tournaments. And so on Crystal Canyon, after every goal that is scored, refracted sunbeams on the crystals will randomly hit 1 or 2 players on each team, setting them on fire and burning them up and knocking them out until the next goal is scored. And the process is repeated at random. So you're playing with essentially a shorthanded team here. It could be, just 2 players, 3 players instead of the 4, plus the keeper and all that. Fortunately, the keeper is not one of them that is burned to a crisp, but yeah, the field is a little more open. You get more room to run around the pitch, and maybe sometimes your captain is out of it, so you're just working with your sidekicks. It's a really tough and interesting stage. Oh my gosh, especially when Diddy Kong uses his special ability to then levitate away some of your players. If you have like 2 players left, and he uses that to levitate to it, you may not have any players to control for a brief period of time. It makes it really difficult to try to beat Diddy Kong on the medium normal difficulty. Anyway, as far as the track goes, before I just keep talking about how even though it's a normal difficulty, it's still really difficult, I feel like the music doesn't really match that environment at all. And even like the stakes that are kind of at place with the stage. But boy, is it catchy to listen to if you get these supporting piano chords and an electric guitar that is just really having fun with the melody. It's just a real catchy piece and represents my my difficulties and limits with playing the game.
It does not feel like it has the vibe of the field you just described to me, where all of there's a possibility that all of your team could get spirited away into the ether or set on fire.
Nope.
And it's this really catchy, but kind of, it feels like they said, what if Gerudo Valley, but on sedatives?
Okay.
And like, I mean, kind of like, not in a bad way. It's a very good song, but like, yeah, this doesn't fit the description I just heard in any way, shape, or form.
It's certainly an interesting track, and honestly, just a difficult stage overall. So what will I never forget about Mario Strikers Charged? On top of seeing Mario characters in new ways and animations and things like that. And it's just the difficulty of the game. Most of all, I just remember playing online matches with friends. Like, that was a new thing for me, having, personally owning a GameCube as my first console, and that wasn't really in an online system. And then making friends online in anticipation of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and in the meantime, having a Wii. Let's trade some friend codes and play this Mario Strikers Charged game. I remember playing matches with my friend, the Buzzsaw. And, he was really good at this game. Kicked my butt a lot. But it's memories like that, and having close matches, whether it was in a college dorm room or online. I feel like that was kind of opening my eyes to online multiplayer on a Nintendo system.
I hope we get a sequel. I would like to play a new Mario Strikers game. I'm hoping the fact that we're getting a new goddamn Mario Golf game, of all things, is a good sign. And a new Mario Tennis game. So, they've done 2 out of 3 of the triumvirate of Mario sports games. We have a golf game. We have a tennis game. We need a baseball game now, and we need another Strikers.
No. I don't care about Sluggers. I mean, Sluggers was fun, but I don't care about Sluggers. Give me Mario Strikers. Give me a new one there.
I like Sluggers only because it's the only game I've seen where they just said, yeah, what about if we just had every character that's ever been anywhere near Mario?
Or we expanded on, did you like playing baseball on Wii Sports? Here it is with Mario and better.
Exactly.
But no, give me Mario Strikers. I totally agree. We need either a new one or just bring this one to Switch, remaster it, get weird with it. This game gets weird with Mario characters, and that's all right with me. But yes, in Europe, it's Tomba. It's Mario Strikers Charged Football. Different names than what we know them as in the States, and that was a good theme to talk about these games this week. Fun soundtracks, to be sure. A fun episode. And that will do things for us this week on Original Soundchat. You can find me on Twitter at PeteSpeakEasy. Joe is over at StringPixel. It's a newer Twitter account for him, so be sure to follow him there. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel, but it's that MP3 podcast version that you want. It's hosted by Anonymous Dinosaur at anondino.squarespace.com. It's where Joe's other podcast, Smasher Pieces, is hosted. And Smasher Pieces and Original Soundchat can be found wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, even on Spotify, where we have a feed with podcast episodes, but it's that big Spotify playlist that we keep up. And if we talk about a video game song on this show and it's on Spotify, it's getting added to that massive playlist. Joe, is anything being added this week?
Well, obviously Strikers, no, because, first party Nintendo game. Nope. And Tomba, it seems like it never got an official release anyways. So nope, that's not on there either. So 0 for 2 this week.
That's a bummer, but there's still plenty to listen to there. And when you're done listening, you can find us on social media at Soundchat OST. Leave some feedback for us. Give some games that you'd like us to cover on the show. I mean, that was certainly this one with Tomba. It's our big goal for 2021, trying new games that we may not be familiar with, but you'd like us to cover on the show. In the future, we'll get some merch set up there. Not body pillows, as we talked about last week. Thank you very much. And also hopefully some bonus tracks for you all. But in the meantime, Joe, who are we talking about next week?
I will be talking about Chris Christodoulou.
I will be talking about Michael Salvatore. Oh, should be another fun week of games on the show. All right, let's play us out with another fan cover, fan remix, whether it's on OC Remix, YouTube, wherever. Not too many options available, surprisingly, for this game, but I did find one of that best character theme, Luigi. This one comes from Game Track Remixes on YouTube, and they titled this one, Luigi Time. That will do it for us this week on Original Soundchat. We'll see you next time. Take care.